And all of a sudden you're kidnapped. Oh my God, look at this, I'm kidnapped.
We're used to seeing Larry David complain about the smallest of things. A bad table at a restaurant, someone cutting in line, a social rule that doesn't make sense. That's who he's always been.
He would come into the room, in my room at the house, and he would say, has anything interesting happened to you lately?
But this time, something was wrong. There was no sarcasm, no irritated rant, no familiar smirk trying to turn discomfort into humor. Larry David was standing completely still, silent in a way people had never seen before. Witnesses say he looked like he had aged 10 years overnight, not because of time, because of a secret he had carried for 3 weeks before everything collapsed. This wasn't a press moment. This wasn't a performance. It was the look of a man who realized that staying quiet might have cost someone their life. When Larry finally spoke, his voice didn't shake from anger. It shook from guilt. Because what he was about to admit wasn't funny, ironic, or observational. It was a confession. And it began with one night he can't stop replaying in his head. A quiet dinner that was never meant to be a warning, but became one anyway. 3 weeks before everything fell apart, there was a dinner no one was supposed to remember. No assistants, no publicity, no Hollywood noise. Just Larry David and Rob Reiner sitting across from each other in a quiet restaurant, the kind of place where conversations usually stay harmless and forgettable, but this one didn't. Rob Reiner barely touched his food. For long stretches, he said nothing at all. He stared at the table, then at his glass of water, like he was trying to steady himself before saying something he had never said out loud. Larry tried to do what he always did. He joked, he complained, he tried to pull the night back into familiar territory. It didn't work. Rob finally leaned forward. His voice dropped so low it almost disappeared beneath the clinking of silverware around them. I don't know who's living in my house anymore. Larry laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because silence made him uncomfortable. He brushed it off with a joke about kids never really growing up. Rob didn't react. Instead, his hand reached across the table and grabbed Larry's arm, not violently, urgently. His hand was shaking. Then he said the word that stopped everything. He looks at us like prey, not parents, not family. Prey. The word hung there between them, heavier than anything else that night. Larry says that was the moment his instincts screamed at him. Because Rob wasn't exaggerating, he wasn't venting, he wasn't being dramatic, he was afraid. This was a man who had spent his entire life in control of rooms, sets, and stories, now admitting he felt hunted inside his own home. And Larry did nothing. He didn't ask the next question. He didn't push for details. He didn't call anyone after. He went home and told himself it was just a bad night. Now, looking back, Larry admits the truth hurts more than the fear ever did. That dinner wasn't a conversation. It was a warning. And he chose to stay quiet. If the dinner planted doubt, the charity gala confirmed it. From the outside, it was a perfect Hollywood night. Red carpet, camera flashes, polished smiles frozen in time. The kind of event designed to make everything look safe. But Larry David wasn't out front. He was in a quiet green room behind the stage. No press, no audience, no performance. Rob Reiner was there, Michelle Singer Reiner was there, and Nick was there too. The air felt wrong the moment Larry walked in. Not loud, not chaotic, just tight. Michelle was adjusting her dress, focused on small details. Normal, calm. But Nick wasn't standing beside her, he was standing over her. That detail stayed with Larry. Nick leaned down and whispered something Larry couldn't hear. He didn't need to. Michelle flinched. Her shoulders snapped back before her face could catch up. A reflex, not a reaction. The kind of movement your body makes when it has learned something your mind doesn't want to admit. Larry felt it immediately. This wasn't tension, it was fear. Then the door opened, a photographer stepped inside, and Nick changed instantly. A smile appeared, warm, confident, effortless. The kind of smile that fills a room and disarms suspicion in seconds. The shift was so clean it felt rehearsed. Larry realized what truly unsettled him wasn't the smile. It was how fast it arrived. There were two versions of Nick standing in the same room. One for cameras, one for closed doors, and the switch between them was flawless. Larry didn't say anything. He didn't step in. He didn't ask Michelle if she was okay. And now that silence weighs on him more than any word he failed to speak. Because people don't flinch like that once. They flinch because they've learned to. Larry says others noticed it too. They felt uncomfortable around Nick. They quietly pulled away. But no one warned Rob. Everyone protected their distance. No one protected the truth. From the outside, the house in Brentwood looked untouchable. Tall gates, perfect lawns, the home of a legendary filmmaker who had everything Hollywood promises. But according to Larry David, that image was a lie. Behind those gates, Rob Reiner wasn't living comfortably. He was living carefully. Rob started talking to Larry about money, quietly at first, small requests, temporary help, the kind of support parents offer when they believe things will eventually get better. But the requests didn't fade, they sharpened. Larry says this wasn't generosity anymore. It wasn't family obligation, it was pressure, not loud, not explosive, calculated. Rob told him something that still echoes in Larry's head. If I cut him off, he collapses. If I keep helping him, we collapse. That wasn't confusion. That was entrapment. Love had become leverage. And slowly, fear followed. Rob admitted something that stripped away any remaining illusion of safety. He had started locking his bedroom door at night, not for privacy, not out of habit, out of fear. A man in his late 70s, inside his own home, listening for footsteps, sleeping lightly, always alert. Rob tried to laugh it off once, made a joke about keeping ghosts out. Larry didn't laugh, because Rob wasn't afraid of ghosts. He was afraid of something real, something living down the hall. Through all of this, one person never stopped hoping. Michelle Singer Reiner. Larry describes her as the optimist, the one who kept believing love could still fix what was breaking, the one who kept opening doors emotionally and literally, even when fear had already moved in. Larry believes that hope became dangerous because while Rob was adapting to survive, Michelle was still trying to heal something that no longer wanted to be healed. This wasn't a sudden breakdown. It was a slow tightening. Fear didn't arrive all at once. It moved in quietly and stayed. People would later call it sudden. Larry David doesn't. He says the collapse didn't come from chaos. It came from one word that finally drew a line. No. There was a project Nick had been pushing relentlessly. Not a suggestion, not a conversation, a demand. He wanted control, authority, the keys, not someday, now. Larry says Nick wasn't asking for an opportunity. He was asking for ownership before it was earned. He wanted to direct, to lead, to step into power without patience or accountability. Rob Reiner said no, not out of anger, not out of punishment, out of clarity. Rob knew something others avoided saying out loud. Nick wasn't ready, not emotionally, not mentally, not professionally. Rob told him trust had to be earned, that if Nick wanted a future, he needed real change, not temporary appearances, not promises, but sustained accountability. Larry says Nick couldn't accept that, because for someone like him, no isn't a boundary, it's humiliation. And humiliation doesn't disappear, it sharpens. From that moment on, everything shifted. The pressure intensified. The atmosphere inside the house grew heavier. Fear stopped being quiet. Larry says this wasn't a loss of control. It was entitlement reacting to denial. And then comes the detail Larry can't escape. 2 days before everything happened, Rob called him. Larry missed it. No message, just silence. He didn't call back, not because he didn't care, but because he was tired, busy, certain it could wait. Now that silence feels unbearable. Larry believes Rob knew time was running out, that something irreversible was approaching, and that missed call became the final door that never opened. Larry David doesn't tell this story to clear his name. He tells it because he can't live with the quiet anymore. We didn't want the nightmare, he says, so we stopped asking what was happening at home. Hollywood didn't miss the signs, it avoided them. People felt the tension. They stepped back. They protected their comfort instead of the truth. That silence didn't come from ignorance. It came from fear, of embarrassment, of bad press, of breaking the image. Now, Larry refuses to let the story be softened, not for legacy, not for reputation, because once you see the pattern, the warnings, the pressure, the years of looking away, peace doesn't arrive, only responsibility does. When Larry last stood outside the Brentwood house, flowers covered the gate. Police tape cut across the driveway. He didn't look at the tributes. He looked at the house where Rob Reiner once tried to live safely. Those walls weren't built to keep people out, Larry said. They were built to keep the nightmare in. For years, silence won. Now it's breaking, and this time there's no punchline.